And we're on. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for January 21st, 2020. I call the meeting to order and I move to the approval of the minutes.
So I will move approval of the minutes of December 10th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to vote the 7th, or do we want to wait on those?
I would wait on the 7th and the 21st.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Yep, I'm okay with that. I think the 7th are the only ones before us tonight anyway, so.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
So we're gonna hold.
Not the 21st.
We're gonna hold on, the minutes for January 7th. Okay. So, I think, as we talked about a few weeks ago when we had our budget books before us in late November, early December, the next phase of our town meeting preparation begins this evening with the announcement of and affirmation of the warrant articles that will be considered for presentation to town meeting this April. It's another one of my favorite nights, and I thank the League of Women Voters for years ago, I think, beefing up our requirement to post these warrant articles, and to make sure that my microphone's pointed the wrong way, to make sure that we adhere to the deadlines that are in the bylaw so that everybody knows, starting now, what business will be conducted by town meeting this April. So we're going to do a couple things tonight. The Board of Selectmen sponsor a number of warrant articles. The way something gets in the warrant is a town entity, commission, or board will put business before town meeting. The Board of Selectmen is one of those entities and has a number of articles that on a perennial basis it will submit to town meeting, as well as discrete articles for a particular town meeting. So there's that aspect of our business tonight, and then we will actually take up discussion of certain warrant articles to begin the advancement from this board to the advisory committee for consideration. So Tom, I think you, I didn't ask for public comment. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, moving on. So Tom, I think that you were gonna take us through.
Yes.
Were you? Okay.
I am, yep. So.
Oh, and Sue Nickerson.
Sue's gonna join us for the warrant article discussion in a sec. I just asked her to come up, but I just wanted to list off the articles that are going to be in the warrant as listed submitted by the Board of Selectmen. So, so that you're aware of it, obviously ahead of time formally, and that the town hears that. So the articles are as follows, and I'm not going to bother with the alphabetical listing because those change over time. So, the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund to assume liability for DCR on rivers, harbors, etc. The reports of various town committees, the report of the Personnel Board, salaries of town officers, the budgets, transfer from the Stabilization Fund, disbursement of electric light department receipts, the Building Department Revolving Fund, transfer of funds to the Reserve Fund, acceptance of easements, repair and reconstruction of town pier, for the water transition process to modify the size of the Citizens Advisory Board. Again, for the water transition process to funding for water capital improvements. And again, for the water transition process, local acceptance of Mass General Law Chapter 40, 42A through 42I, which is the ability to issue a lien. So, in the instance of non-payment. IT departmental upgrades, design funds for senior center renovations, townwide facility study, acceptance of the Solar Pilot Agreement 1 and the Solar Pilot Agreement 2, just so you know, these are the payment in lieu of taxes from the MBTA's contractor for the solar facilities at the 2 train stations. Transfer of funds to the Waterways Fund, amendments to the Harbor Bylaw, a discontinuance of a portion of Old Derby Street, and a disposition of a portion of Old Derby Street. So those are the articles that are going to be submitted by the Board of Selectmen, and if you guys, there's a vote on the proposed vote list I think you can just vote that as presented.
I move to submit the attached list of warrant articles by the Board of Selectmen to be inserted in the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. All right.
Should we do the further votes
Further votes?
to open? Before we get to the discussion, there's 2 other votes listed here.
Oh,
I just,
you got 5 other votes. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could take those now, sure. So we can do these 2 procedural votes and then, so the reason we're opening the warrant for an insertion of the additional zoning warrant article, is that not here tonight? Why isn't that part of what we just did?
That,
zoning is due December 1.
Oh,
right, that
there
is
we
here
go.
tonight, but the zoning has an earlier deadline of
That's
December
right.
1.
Okay, all right. Okay, do you want to make a motion on that?
Sure.
Sorry.
I move to open the warrant for the insertion of an additional zoning warrant article in the form attached here to update the floodplain map references, EEE, and to refer said warrant article to the planning board under Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81. I can't tell if there's something beyond that 81.
if it's an aye.
81I, and to close the warrant relative to zoning warrant articles.
Excuse me, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I would further move to refer warrant article double G to the planning board under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5.
Second.
And can I just ask, the discontinuance of the portion of Old Derby Street needs to be referred, but the disposition of the portion of Old Derby Street would fall under the auspices of the Board of Selectmen, so that's not being referred? Is that the rationale?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so moving Article G, or referring Article GG, discontinuance of a portion of Old Derby to the planning board has been moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And how does that happen, Michelle? Is that what you do? Call them up and move that along?
I would work with town council to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Okay, so
Fun begins.
the fun begins.
You all
I
have your new
think,
warrant?
I think Mary's fun is the budget book. My fun is the warrant articles. All right, Article A, so I tell this story, so this is the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund. So I joined the advisory committee, and I had, like a deer in the headlights, had no idea what I was doing, and I was given, as all first-year advisory committee people are, articles that they think you can handle, and I was given.
No offense.
Wow, the laughter started much too soon. So I was given the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund article, and I spent, I don't know, multiple hours researching Hannah Lincoln Whiting, all of the people on the committee, all of the money that they spent, and wrote the same comment that's been in the warrant now for, I don't know, 20 years. So, with that, we turn to Article A, which is appointing members to the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund. And the Hannah Lincoln Whiting Fund is a fund that makes grants on an annual basis to needy folks resident in South Hingham.
So it allows grants to be made on an annual basis. There has been a little while since one has actually been made, and we're up to about $2,500 in available disbursements. So it might be a good time to look at that a little bit closer. We've talked with Ms. Sadlin. Karen Sadlin has agreed to be reelected.
Okay.
And as the article points out, it's within a 3-person's discussion, jurisdiction, or authority to
Yep.
disperse those funds. So we'll be working with them this year, I think, to maybe give that a go.
Okay, great. Questions?
Just on the vote, typically when we vote to appoint, we say what for a term ending with a specific date, and I don't see a date here.
I think it's a year to, is it a three?
It's
no,
a
it's
three-year
It's a
term.
term.
Three-year
but
term,
when
there's
does
3
it-
of them on a 3-year.
when does
I
that-
would say that, I think in these books right now,
Yeah.
so the advisory committee will actually vote the recommended motion. I think there's sometimes language in here for a comment and a recommended motion that's
Right.
kind of a little bit descriptive, but I think they take care of that, and then it's reviewed by council and the moderator. So I think
The
our
actual
vote,
dates.
we typically, I think, have voted favorable action on the articles, so that if the recommended motion changes,
Yeah.
we don't
That's
have to revote it.
That's right. And conceptually, Joe, what I'll
Okay.
tell you is that each of these are a 3-year term, so
Right.
they come in, everyone, there's 3 of them, so they come up every year. A new one comes up.
But to Mary's point, that will be specified in the recommended
That'll be
motion by the
specified by
advisory.
the,
Yeah.
by AdCom.
I think you'll see comments and recommended motions that are, in some cases, work in process,
Right.
Yep.
because the advisory committee owns both of those.
Yep.
And is the advisory committee looking for us to vote these tonight?
Yes,
Yes.
they're,
Okay, So
and
favorable,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, just trying to get a head start on some of the shorter
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
Sue's here to make sure that we vote.
Yeah, I'm bringing all the votes over there. No.
Do you have anything else?
How many members are on the committee?
3.
And who are the other 2?
I do not know.
I should know that.
I could find out for you.
Okay, nope, that's not going to affect my vote.
Mary?
And you have to be a resident of South Hingham, just remember,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, it does.
yeah, I'm not,
I'm not sure how that's defined, but
would you
yes.
take a motion?
I would.
I'd recommend favorable action on Article A.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Article B.
So Article B is where we assume liability for the DCR. I'll just read the comment from last year. As a matter of policy, it requires the town to assume liability if it is to perform any of this type of work within the town. In accordance with the statute, the town would assume liability for all damages to property sustained by any person as a result of such work performed by the DCR. This article is a requirement of the DCR for all member towns.
Joe, questions?
To the extent that there is liability, does the town have insurance on that?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Mary?
I'm good.
I would accept a motion.
I move favorable action on Article B.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article C is the town report for, specifically, this article is for accepting the reports of town meeting boards. We always think of it as the town report. The town report, as you know, contains all of these reports as well as reports of the departments and other boards that are not town meeting boards. But this is the list of the town meeting boards, and this is an article to accept the report of those boards.
I have no questions.
Mary?
So we've checked to see that no committees have been discharged, and
Yeah.
I noticed that the
Yeah.
transition is added, thank
If you
you.
remember, we did that last year, and we actually found 2, I think, that we removed that
Okay.
hadn't been in place for several years, but you're right, yep.
No, if people have been through that, and thank you for doing that, I'm good.
Yep, and that's always the exercise, right, is to make sure that we're accurately reporting out
Yes.
these town committees. I would take a motion.
I move to recommend favorable action on Article C.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this is a transfer from the stabilization fund.
I think we're
We're going to
I-
G,
I have-
right?
What did I just jump to?
I have-
Jumped to H, sorry.
Yeah, G?
Yeah.
G,
No, that's G,
yes,
transfer to stabilization fund, is that right?
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
So pursuant to town meeting votes, to prior town meeting votes, the proceeds from the sale of former school administration building, the municipal light plant building, and the former police station were deposited in the stabilization fund for future tax reduction. The amount was augmented by the addition of bond premiums associated with the refinancing of excluded debt. This article would transfer a portion of the stabilization fund to the purpose of reducing the fiscal year '21 tax rate. And this year's sum is $178,836, which is what it is per a schedule that Sue will recap for you now.
Take it away, Sue.
Actually, it's in your budget book. It's
Yep.
page
We don't have that.
XX. It's the 15-year debt schedule.
Right.
It's 178,836, comprised of 2 different bond premiums. 65,000 will end in 2029, and the balance, about 114, will expire in 2035.
So we got a few more years. About 10, 15.
There's about $2.1 million in the stabilization fund. with the new Modernization
Yeah,
Act.
they go away,
the-
right?
Yeah, the bond premiums can't go in the stabilization fund anymore. So,
Joe, questions?
Nope, no questions.
Mary?
No, I would just say that it's funds like these that, as they go away, we need to remember that as part of our local receipts, we get like interest income, and as these balances decline, you know, we have to be careful at forecasting that piece, that we take into account the declining balance.
Good point.
Yep.
I would take a motion.
Move favorable action on Article G.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
H. So the Hingham Municipal Light Plant is a self-funded enterprise. The funds collected from billing customers are used to pay all expenses incurred by the plant. The HMLP board has an agreement in place whereby it makes a payment in lieu of taxes to the town. The pilot amount is calculated by multiplying the number of kilowatt hours sold by HMLP in the prior year by .0025, with a minimum payment to the town of $450,000. Based on sales for the last several years, it's estimated this payment will be approximately $500,000. The plant's pilot to the town has the effect of reducing the town's tax rate.
No questions?
Mary?
No, Tom and Michelle, I would just make a note that we should ask John Coughlin if we need something similar for the water company,
Okay.
because we envision a similar mechanism.
Yep.
But no questions on this.
So do you think we may need that for this town meeting? Or
Oh, yeah, because it's going to go, this is for
But
the
I'm-
next fiscal year.
I'm
well,
not
let's talk
sure,
to him.
that's,
Yeah.
it,
That's a
and I,
question to ask.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
triggered it.
Yeah, the pilot question and when, and what that's gonna look like. I'll talk to John.
Okay.
That's a really good point.
So no further questions on H. I would take a motion.
And move to recommend favorable action of Article H.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article I is the Building Department Revolving Fund, which is credited with all fees from plumbing, gas, and electrical inspections performed by inspectors. This fund is used to pay wages, salaries, and fringe benefits as applicable to these building department staff members. And just to be clear, it's also funding staff that assist those purposes, such as, in part, the administrative assistants in that office, as well as the building commissioner, to the extent that he supports those purposes.
And I think it's funding some of the uniforms that Mike talked about last week.
Yep, that's right.
Sue, do we know the
a good idea.
balance in this account? So when the comment
everything else
is,
except for this.
when the comment is prepared, I think in the past, the balance has always
Balance
been
is
there,
in
which
there.
has been helpful for people in
Okay.
just kind of looking at it. I think it's,
Don't know if we have to do that anymore,
okay.
but we can also include it if you
We
want.
might want to see if we stopped doing it in the last couple of years. I remember,
We are starting to bring it down a bit.
yes. Thank you.
Joe, any further questions?
Nope, no questions.
I would take a motion.
Move favorable action on Article I.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
J, the Department of Elder Services Revolving Fund, which is credited with all the fees and charges received from the senior center programs and pays expenses associated with providing these services and activities for the town's senior residents. Just so you know, on this one, they've increased the request from last year's $70,000 to $80,000.
And was there anything particular driving that? Pardon me?
I believe she had an explanation.
I don't
I think they were
particularly
doing more programs.
Yeah, it was
Program.
it's just a general comment. I don't think it was a specific project.
Okay,
It
And this-
talks about instructors, presenters, day trip expenses,
okay,
the like.
The fees for the instructors went up, but the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
ones
yeah.
weren't as specific.
okay. Joe?
No questions.
Nope, no questions.
Okay. I would take a motion on Article J.
Move favorable action on Article J.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
L.
So the acceptance of easements. Okay. Town benefits from, there's two paragraphs.
You can do it. You can do it, Tom.
The town benefits from many easements over private property throughout Hingham. From time to time, the town, particularly its Department of Public Works, requires new easements in order to complete roadway and other public works projects. At times, the town receives requests from private property owners to relocate easements held by the town on their property. Under Massachusetts law, the town meeting approval is required for the Board of Selectmen to accept such easements. This article would allow the Board of Selectmen to accept such easements during the coming year and thus to avoid potentially expensive delays and inconvenience to projects that benefit the town. The project is intended solely to cover easements voluntarily granted to the town and would not allow the Board of Selectmen to accept easements that require funds to acquire them. Furthermore, the authority conferred by this article is not unlimited in time, it is limited to the coming year. If continuing authority is required, the next annual town meeting may be asked to approve it, which is why this is a perennial.
Right, and so as Tom said, because it's an interest in real property, the Board of Selectmen doesn't have the authority to even accept a gift of an easement or a grant of an easement. That is an action that's within the purview of town meeting unless it's delegated to the Board of Selectmen, which is what this article does. I do recall in the last several years, there was a particular call out that this was only intended to cover voluntary easements, so it's not as if we can get into a negotiation to acquire an easement for money. That conversation would have to come back to town meeting for approval. So it is sort of one of those doing business kind of articles that I think the board does need the authority to keep things moving, and that's what this does. Joe?
I think this is important because sometimes action has to be taken in a timely manner, and if we have to wait for a town meeting, the time will pass. But no questions.
No questions.
Okay, I would accept a motion on Article L.
I move to recommend favorable action of Article L.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Article U.
Oh, man, you get
This is why Sue Nickerson is here. Sue?
You got that buck in your office you're passing?
That's right, exactly.
She's smiling, though. This is great.
Yeah, she has to smile. He
I
can
do
box.
have to smile. Article U, will the town accept the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 103J, inserted by Section 19 of Chapter 188, so as to increase the maximum base on which COLA, cost of living adjustment, is calculated to $14,000, or act on anything related thereto? Basically, the retirement board takes a public meeting every fall to find out whether we should increase the COLA base. And what it is the COLA amount that we vote on every spring is based on the base. It can be $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, all the way up to $18,000. You can increase it by increments of $1,000 every year if you would like. What Hingham does is every year, there's 104 retirement boards. We poll them to see where they are. We like to be in the middle. When there are more towns above us, that's when we usually vote to increase the COLA. So we did a survey, and we are 13,000. There's 51 communities at 12 and 13, and there's 53, 12, 13, 14 and above. So we have voted unanimously to increase it to 14,000. Now, our actuary did a study to find out what that would cost. Overall, the liability will be $747,100. And what they do is they spread it over the entire life of the actuary valuation. And to increase the base by $1,000 for fiscal '21, we are asking for $93,600 from available funds, so from fund balance.
So just to be clear for people at home, this is the first $13,000 to $14,000 in a retiree's base pay.
Yes.
And we're talking about giving a cost of living adjustment to that number on an annual basis. So because there are so many retirees, we simply can't afford to apply a cost of living adjustment to their entire retirement. So what we do is we apply that cost of living adjustment to a portion of it. And
Which is PARAC
we're
rules.
just increasing the base pay a little bit.
And so the accrued liability increases by 747. Is that a present value calculation of the future stream of payments, or is it actually adding that up? Or do you know which it is?
I can find out from my actuary.
Okay.
I believe it's probably present value.
That would be my assumption.
That'll be
as well.
my guess.
Okay.
And I note, so if town meeting were to approve the cost of, the change in the base for the cost of living adjustment, there's a value attached to that for the coming fiscal year, for
Yes.
FY '21, that would have to be transferred from available funds to meet the FY '21 obligation. Does this vote then need to speak to that funding as well
I think it will in
in the recommended
the
motion?
recommended
Okay.
motions. It will come
And
from
then-
fund
And then
balance
from then on, it gets carried as part of,
in the budget,
yep,
yes.
okay.
And that's the 93,000.
93.6,
Okay.
yes.
So Sue, is there, I know in the forecast, there's a line for warrant articles?
Yes.
Is that where it will go?
Yes.
And so as we're looking to settle the operating budget, do we consider that 93.6, or do we say,
No, because it's going to be a wash.
if,
Because in the revenue, you'll use fund balance of 93.6, and then the articles will be
Okay.
93.6.
so you will, in the forecast budget, 93.6 from fund balance? If the article, I don't mean to like get in the weeds here, but let's say that we budget it up top in the revenue, and for some reason the article fails, then the 93.6 just kind of drops.
Yes,
But it can't be used for anything else, so it would essentially go back.
it will stay in there.
Okay,
In fund balance, yes.
thank you, I just needed to,
But it strikes me that the
Walk that
recommended
through.
motion's gonna have to give us that authority.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And just 2015 was the last time we increased the COLA base.
so not in 5 years.
Okay. And our base right now is 12, I'm sorry, you may.
13.
maybe- It's 13, okay,
We're going to go from 13 to 14.
okay, great. Any further questions on that one?
I appreciate the data and the
Yeah.
analysis that you did on that. I think it just really helps with the decisions.
Agreed.
Yes.
I'll move favorable action on Article U.
Second?
Any further discussion? Oh, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Gonna be that quick next door?
Yeah. Heck, yeah, good luck.
You know that Lincoln Whiting one?
We're sending Karen over.
Before we leave this, just thinking about this disbursement of water company receipts, since today is the day that the warrant articles are accepted, would the board want to amend its vote under, to submit the attached list of warrant articles for this article if required? That way we don't have to come back and open the warrant and close the warrant. It just gets kind of clunky
That's a
when we
good
do
idea.
that.
Yep.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, yeah, because it can drop off.
Right,
Right.
But if we end up needing to include it, we have to go
Right.
through that whole process.
Yeah, so do we have to
We call it.
reopen?
I'm just looking at what,
We haven't closed, it closes today, so.
Right, we voted this
Probably wouldn't.
attached list, so we would need to, I think,
Amend.
reopen the
Or
vote.
we could simply do another motion
Yeah, just do
to
another
vote
Add
to
it?
submit
Okay,
an article, what I'm going to call HH. Oh, no, there already is an HH, because it's basically the same as the electric
okay,
company.
aye.
Or, yeah, whatever we want to
Yeah,
call it.
and- Okay. Heidi, that could be called disbursement of water company receipts.
that's what I was looking for, was the title, yeah. I
That's the
prefer there
same.
not be a letter attachment to it, just because
Yeah,
these are
well,
still gonna
okay.
fluctuate,
Right.
they're gonna adjust.
Yeah,
Okay, so Joe, what's your?
So my motion would be to submit as a warrant article by the Board of Selectmen to be inserted into the 2020 annual town meeting warrant, an article entitled Disbursement of, not really water company department receipts, but of the Ware River Water System receipts.
I knew that's what you were gonna say.
second.
Woo, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
good, I think that's a good,
Really good catch.
good
Thank you.
addition,
Yeah.
yep.
No,
The
that's-
non-lawyer.
Oh, I'm sorry, it
The
should have been.
non-lawyer caught it.
As needed,
Yeah.
if needed.
That's okay, because it'll drop, if
It'll-
if
right,
not,
okay.
it just drops.
Yeah, it'll
Right,
just drop
okay,
off if we don't
okay.
do it. That's right.
Excellent.
And you'll follow up with John?
Yeah.
on that? Okay,
Oh, yeah. yeah.
Great.
Anything else we didn't think of, you think? I guess, well, to be determined. So the chief is not here. We've got a few votes. Maybe we could do, I don't think we have any appointments tonight, right?
No appointments tonight, no.
Do you think, do you want to see if he's out there?
Well, he's not doing the DPW, so we could,
Yeah, we could do the DPW, yeah. So, what we have before us tonight, you may recall a week or so ago, Jack Manning and Russell Kahn from the Personnel Board came before us to talk about the settlement of 2 collective bargaining agreements with a couple of different collective bargaining units, including units within the Department of Public Works and units within the Police Department. So, sorry to call you back in a rush. We were gonna take DPW first. So there's a little bit of a process that goes on in terms of negotiating essentially a term sheet that's then reduced to contractual language. So we heard sort of a fulsome description of what those provisions were from the Personnel Board, which we received. We then received contract language that has been both approved by the collective bargaining unit, the union representatives for the collective bargaining unit, and the Board of Selectmen. So tonight is the formality of endorsing that contractual language so that we can move forward with the implementation of those changes.
Can I just say, I've worked for a town in the past that doesn't do this step, and we end up with 10 years of MOUs and trying to determine how they interact with one another. It's a nightmare. This is a very important step.
And it's also like, I think we agree a term sheet can be fairly technical, but I think it's important for both sides, to your point, to agree to contractual language that's gonna bind both the town and the unit.
Yeah,
So-
both steps are important.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Joe, do you have any comments or questions with respect to Teamsters Local 25? So we've got the 1 year and the 3 year.
yeah, so that was my question, just to make sure I understood. So we've got one that's retroed back to July 2019.
That's right.
Goes through June 30th, 2020, and then the other one picks up and goes out to June 30th, 2023.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And the financial terms that are in the Teamsters Local, basically all these contracts are consistent with what we've previously received and
Yes.
reviewed.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
I have no other questions.
Mary, any questions?
I would just once again thank the Personnel Board and Michelle and the union for working collaboratively. Again, we benchmark, we look to see, just as we do with the COLA that we just talked about, that with our 20-town comparison, we just like to be north of the midpoint. And as we look at our 5-year forecast, this contract is sustainable within our revenues, which is important for the town.
Any further discussion on this? I would accept a motion.
Make a motion to sign a contract with the Teamsters Local 25 DPW Supervisors effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye. And then I move to sign the contract with the Teamsters Local 25 DPW Supervisors effective July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2023.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have the Police Superiors Union. Chief is in the room. I think we heard last time from both the department as well as from Sean Kavanaugh that the terms were mutually acceptable to everybody, and
Yes, that's correct. We have a very good agreement. I just think everybody worked well together to make this agreement happen.
great, thank you. Any other questions about the Police Superiors union contract? Joe? nothing?
So this is this is a contract that only goes to June 30, 2020. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
The reasoning behind that is we wanted to put the police and fire
On the same
and
schedule.
patrol
Right.
officers all the same because we do want to
Any other questions?
No.
I would accept a motion on this one.
Make a motion to sign a contract with the Police Superiors Union, MCOP Local 405, effective July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And Chief, we've got a couple of one-day licenses. I hear from Sharon Perfetti, everything is in order for these two. I've had a chance to review them myself. So I would accept a motion to approve the issuance of a special one-day all alcoholic beverages license to Mary Ann Blackmur on behalf of Hingham Community Center for an evening of tastings to be held at the Hingham Community Center on February 7, 2020, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second. Oh, I'll make the motion, sorry.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, 3 off on that one. And I would accept, I'd accept a motion to approve the issuance of a special one-day wine and malt beverages license to Stephanie Stratton on behalf of Hingham Youth Hockey for the Hingham Youth Hockey Social to be held at the Hingham Community Center on February 1st, 2020, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Sound like very nice events.
Yes.
Encourage you to come out to the community center to support our local charitable organizations. No appointments this evening, I don't think. No appointments. Okay. Thanks, Chief. Selectmen and town administrator reports.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing.
So I just wanted to, Mary Savage Dunham, our town planner, came up today and asked me to let the folks in town know, and all of you, to the extent people are interested, there are business card size informational cards available in the planning department, on the back of which is a, what do they call, the QR code? That you can scan to get a survey for our comprehensive planning effort. So please come on in, see if you can pick one of those up and have at it. There's also a URL if you don't know how to use one of those squiggly things. So
Where do they go in? Into her office?
they're in her office, yes. Yep, in the planning department, yes. Thank you.
Joe?
Well, I have a brief report that's going to actually ask Tom to speak a little more. We had a loss of heat at the Lincoln School Apartments, and the town administrator was on top of that. The fire department, the police departments, they all rallied, and I'm sure there are other departments who were involved that got the heating units going, and I understand everything is under control, but we had contingency plans in place, and I think it's just the planning that you and Michelle have instituted for the town paid off. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more
Sure.
about how
Yeah.
that was handled.
Yeah, sure, thank you. So like Selectman Fisher said, the heating units, 3 of the 4 heating units failed at the LSA apartments over the weekend, and right, this is when these things happen.
And it was cold and snowing.
In a snowstorm on a holiday weekend. Right,
yep.
this is when these things happen. So our management company, Corcoran, was on it. They got their company down to get those boilers fixed. It took time. There was a lot of work that had to be done on them. During that interim period, we monitored the temperatures. Temperatures never fell to any dangerous levels or outside of code. As a matter of fact, we didn't drop below the minimum code number, which is good to hear, but it was chilly in there. And as a result, we had some contingency plans in place. We didn't exactly mobilize our emergency management team, I would say, but we certainly were all on the phone. And we walked through a lot of things. I would call out Horatio Hemmings, our erstwhile maintenance staff member here on Town Hall, who I called at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock on Saturday night. 5 minutes after I called him, he had the senior center open, heat on, coffee maker going, chairs set up, ready to receive potentially 100 or so seniors should that have come to pass. Shoveled out the walkway and prepared the building to receive them. So as always, everybody in this town steps up when needed. So I was very pleased with our response. We will be doing after response discussions, reviews, both with Corcoran and our internal process to make sure we identify where we can improve and make sure that we do that.
Great. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks for calling that out.
A couple things. I just want to note this warrant book. Today is the deadline for the warrant closing, and in Karen, you and I, between the two of us, I think we probably span 15 years on advisory and the Board of Selectmen. I've never gotten a book this early, and many of the warrant articles, there's already a notation that they've been reviewed by council, which is so important in meeting that February 1st deadline that Karen mentioned earlier about the League of Women Voters. I think a lot of us sitting at this table have an appreciation for the number of hours that go into just getting us this far. We have a long way to go, but getting us this far, being there on January 21st, our colleagues are next door, being able to review it, is just a remarkable achievement. And my thanks, Tom, to you, to Michelle, to Sharon, to Heidi. I know it's a real team effort. I think this is terrific. It really is. And I think it's going to add to increased visibility for the warrant articles, which is something that's important to all of us. I would just mention that the board, we all got invitations to Lincoln Day. That's taking place on February 15th. You'll probably hear more about that, but mark your calendars. And I did just want to mention that this Saturday there's actually a memorial service for Joan Newell, who is a longstanding member of our community who passed a few weeks ago. Her dedication to the town, in particular the library where she ran the volunteers for, I think, 45 years, was just remarkable. Her sense of stewardship and participating in her community, she passed down to her daughter Lucy Hancock, who's been a colleague of ours for many years, and just always a very warm, gracious, engaged, smart woman. It was really an honor to know her, and we send our condolences to her and her family, and appreciate all her contributions to the town.
Thank you. Really, really nice remarks. And I just would wrap up to say that I attended on behalf of the board the Veterans Appreciation Night sponsored by the Hingham wrestling team this past Wednesday. We had a moment of silence for John McHugh, who, as Michelle talked to you last week, passed away, another fine citizen in the ilk of, taking care of others. The evening, the Veterans Appreciation Evening is really a wonderful event hosted annually. It draws attention to the service and sacrifice of our Hingham veterans. It honors them. And the Veterans Appreciation Club at the high school solicits contributions to the Corporal Christopher Orlando Scholarship Fund. And my sources tell me they raised over $500 that evening, which is a great deal of money in support of that scholarship fund. That fund is awarded on an annual basis to a graduate of Hingham High School who intends to pursue the military, fire, police, or the trades as their future path. So again, a way for us to continue to keep the memory of Corporal Orlando alive and in our hearts, and a way to show our appreciation for our veterans. I was there along with Senator Patrick O'Connor, and again, just another example of, I think, fine community spirit. So, on that note, I think I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.
Everybody.